if you liked the original Duke Nukem games, you probably liked Duke Nukem Forever.
What the actual fuck is he on about?
Played almost identical to those games from the 1990s.
No, he didn't.
The few things that they did modernize didn't really work very well.
Yeah, because they were bad.
But when that game came out, it's almost like every single media outlet went out of their way to review it poorly on purpose to create a fervor so people would check out their content.
No, they reported it badly because it was bad. This is going to be one of the fucking stupidest things he's ever said. What the actual...
One gaming service had a girl who was like 21 years old who couldn't possibly have even played the classics in the 90s, and of course she's like, oh, I don't like the gore, I don't like the sexual humor, I don't like this. It's like, did you play the original games?
No, don't do this. Don't do this, it's a fucking stupid argument, Bill.
Why'd you have a 21-year-old woman review the game who never played the original and is offended by sexualized content? Gee, you think you maybe picked the wrong fucking person to review the game?
Is it because she's a girl?
This has happened many times over the years where I feel that gaming media, sadly, just don't do their jobs well. They're not responsible.
Yeah, fine. Fine if that review had reasons why it was a terrible game.
They should be held accountable for what they're doing. Not, oh, we're protected under the guise that it's a fucking opinion piece. That's bullshit.
Maybe the issue here is you have bad taste. He's getting mad at... Why? I don't understand why. Just...
So, our next question is from Kill Bill 2016, and he says the following. Recently, a Days Gone actor suggested some reviewers did not finish or rushed through the game, creating misleading reviews. Do you think that reviewers should be obligated to track their time and state in their review readers can judge how accurate their opinion may actually be? Do you think that you always have to finish a story to be able to truly review a game? Just a side note, I love that you are on YouTube now. I can finally watch you live on my TV instead of on my iPad. Well, Kill Bill, I have been one of the people over the years who has been incredibly critical of these mainstream reviewers and the way that they go about their business. I have always argued that there needs to be accountability. By the way, shout out to In Dead, who just became a channel member. I will have to check, because I know we got a bunch of channel members.
How does one establish the standards by which accountability is measured and appropriated? How do you decide these are the criteria by which we're going to judge your reviews, and if you don't meet them, we are going to hold you accountable in some way? Who gets to do that, Phil? Who gets to look at a review system and go, you must state this, and this, and if you don't, you will be penalised in some way? And how are you breaking down those punishments for infractions? How are you going to judge this, basically?
This stream. By the end of the stream, I'll have to check and update the total members. I wish that it was easy to do like it is on Twitch. It's not. I have to go to a menu. I have to do math. It's really stupid the way they do it over here on YouTube. Okay. I've been a person who has been very critical of reviewers over the years and said that these mainstream reviewers, there's the dancing animation, the mainstream reviewers are not held accountable, and that's not good. They should be held accountable.
Do you remember when that, what's it called, Philip something, that guy who plagiarized his review of Dead Cells, and then when it was pointed out that he'd been plagiarizing his reviews, he said, no, I haven't, and I challenged the internet to find any examples of me plagiarizing work, and then the internet found a bunch of examples of him plagiarizing. Do you remember what happened to him? He was fucking held accountable for it. The reviews he wrote were taken down. The games that he reviewed were re-reviewed. He was basically blacklisted from the industry. He's only recently, I think it was a couple of months ago, he tried to make a fucking comeback or something, but there is accountability when people fuck up in journalism. It's just for serious things that require it, not writing a review when they've not fully completed the game. That's not a thing that's really accountability worthy. Yes. That's not a thing it's worth holding someone responsible for. This bit's gonna be wild, isn't it? And 14 minutes into the video and 35 minutes on this recording. Jesus.
For what they say and do in their reviews. They should be absolutely be saying, I played this much, this is the content I did in my playthrough, it took me this long to beat the game,
Most reviews do. I don't think I've read a review where they've not gone, here's what I did in the game. I don't read reviews that often, but most of the time they either say, like, here's like the things that I did in the game, or here's how long I played it for, you know, or like here's how long you can expect to play it for. This is going to be Strawman Central, this one.
this kind of a person, yada, yada, yada. How do you know? You're just reading a random review with someone's name on it. Does that person usually play that kind of game? Have they played previous games in the franchise to have a back?
Why does that matter? Why does that matter? Because you're making a game. You should approach it with the idea that the people buying it have not played this before. That's why you have tutorials for basically everything. Because most game design now assumes that the buyer is new in some way. They might not be new to the genre, but they might be new to the series. They might be new to the genre. So most games will tell you, here's how you run, here's how you jump, here's how you shoot. So that's less of a factor nowadays than it was in the days before tutorials, you know. I don't see why that's a thing, because a good game should, you know, be able to be picked up and played by anyone, regardless of whether they're an expert or a newcomer. And a lot of that has to do with how the game teaches the player, and it approaches that from the perspective of the player has not played, because if it approached it from the perspective of the person buying this knows what they're doing, most of the people buying it won't necessarily. So you're going to let them down, you're going to fail them. Whereas if you approach it the other way, the people who don't know much about the game and really appreciate the tutorial, whereas the people who do know, like, say, how to play an FPS or how to play a Metroidvania, and they'll just get through the tutorial quickly. It doesn't need to be a thing. It's a bit like it's like the Duke Nukem thing before, of, you know, she was a young woman, did she even play the previous games? It's like, why does that matter? Because some people are going to be picking up Duke Nukem Forever for the first time, and they're also not going to have played the first game, because it's been like 20 odd years. So a lot of people who might potentially buy this game have no experience with the previous game. That's a common approach to game design nowadays, to tutorialize the basics, so that on the off chance that the person buying a game this is their first game, that they can be accommodated and they can learn how to play it. It concerns like this shouldn't matter anymore.
If this game is better or worse than previous games in said franchise. Did they just play another first-person shooter that they can directly compare this one to? You know, how long did they play the game? I played the multiplayer for 2 hours, 5 hours, or 50 hours. Those are going to be three completely different perspectives on a game. You see?
Yeah, but if I've only got 5 hours to put into the game, I'm not really bothered about the 50-hour perspective, you know? Not everybody can put the maximum amount of time in to fully complete everything in the games that they play. My average game completion on Steam is something like 28%. You know? It's like sometimes I'll play a game and think, it's a bit shit this, and then move on. So it shouldn't really matter. I mean, at least it doesn't to me. I'm not one of the people that gets worked up about games journalism. There are more important things in life that's worth getting worked up about than whether somebody fully completed the game before awarding it an 8 out of 10 or a 7 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10, whatever. Generally sort of get a feel for game for like watching the trailers and sort of like going, it looks like a game I might like, or it's a bit shit.
That is done in most mainstream game reviews. Maybe there are a few out there. I don't want to say no, none. That's kind of overgeneralizing. In general, okay.
I don't want to say none. That's overgeneralizing. In general. He doesn't want to overgeneralize, and then he immediately, like the literal next sentence, the literal next words are in general. Fuck.
Okay. Mostly, these game review sites don't do that. They are completely irresponsible, and they act like just because they're journalists with an opinion, that their opinion is protected no matter what, so they can say and do whatever they want about a game, and they're fine.
Yeah, their opinions are protected. You have a thing called the First Amendment. Well, I know that's not how it works. It stops the government from suppressing your speech. But, it does mean that you're also allowed to, like, criticize the latest Ubisoft release, and Ubisoft can't sue you into oblivion to get your review taken down. That's an impingement on your right to free speech. So, in that regard, it is protected. But it's also, it's an opinion. Reviews are opinions. Like, Siskel and Ebert, the movie reviewers. When you watch their reviews, they're opinions. They're people who watch a lot of movies giving their opinions on movies. It's the same with game reviewers. It's people who play games giving their opinions on games. It's the same as music. When you buy a music magazine and read the album reviews, it's people who listen to a lot of music and write about that, giving their opinions on the albums. The problem, you can't have like truly objective reviews unless you just stick to stating the basics. This is an open world game. You go from point A to point B. There's some combat. 9 out of 10. Need the opinion of the person playing it, because everybody playing it will have an opinion on it. So, what's wrong with wanting other opinions on it before you buy it?
Completely and utterly bullshit. That is called you don't take your job seriously, you're not a professional, and you don't deserve a paycheck for it.
You don't deserve a paycheck. You don't even review things anymore. You get to like the last half hour of a stream and then go, yeah, it was alright, that wasn't it? Did I get enough contributions? Then yeah, it was great, it was a good game. Contributions have been low, you've stopped it, it's shit. You tried to review. God knows you tried to review. You had KO Gaming. You did strangely well with that Homefront review. And then, because everything after that wasn't the immediate same success as that one was, you gave up really quickly, rather than sticking with it and building it organically. Because it involved work, it involved writing and editing. Two things that are anathema to your content creation. So, just bitter. Bitter that people don't take his opinion seriously anymore. Because he did used to review games, didn't he? When he would get to the end, he would review them. He would have a bit at the end that counted as a review. He would give final thoughts on things. Well, anyway, I thought he didn't read reviews. I thought he didn't pay attention to like games media.
I'm going to say anything you want about a game without any justification. You did not do the service of putting out a real review.
Wait.
That's not a review.
Again, why? What makes it not a real review? If I played a game and I formed an opinion of that game and then I write that opinion and I attach a numerical score at the end that I feel is representative of my opinion of that game, what about that doesn't make that a review?
A review has certain criteria associated with it to give it merit. There's a difference between a stupid off-the-cuff opinion and a review. But for some...
Right, well, most reviews also do that. Most reviews, they'll either have like that bit at the end where they're like graphics, sound, gameplay, blood and guts. You know, they'll have like that breakdown there, or they'll mention it throughout the review itself, the body of the review. They'll they'll be talking about their experience of things that have happened within the game when they were playing it, and they'll also mention the scenery was fucking fantastic, or the sound design really added to the ambience of the setting, and they talk about these things. Most reviews tend to include a number of these things that he's complaining about.
Reason gaming media don't understand the difference between a opinion and a review. They think they're the same. They're not. They're completely different.
No, they're the same. They're the same. When Clarkson, Hammond and May were on Top Gear and they reviewed the cars, what were they doing when they were reviewing the cars? They were giving you their opinions of what those cars felt like to drive. They'd also have like a little bit where they'd like pull up on the side of a road and be like, this baby's got 12,000 brake horsepower and it's got a 19-volt Castrol GTX cap underneath the fucking bonnet or something. They break that down and walnut leather interior. Bentley B8 convertible, Bentley V8, not Bentley B8. There's a Red Dwarf reference there. I loved it.
The first time was with this girl I met at cadet school called Sandra. We did it in the back of my brother's car.
What was it like?
Brilliant. Incredible. Bentley V8 convertible. Walnut burr paneling. Marvelous machine, marvelous.
But they'll give an opinion on how it feels to drive as well. They'll give an opinion on what it's like to be in that car. The reviews are opinions. We all bring our bias to our work, and reviews are not an exception to that. This is fucking stupid.
A review is supposed to have all these other factors involved so that you know that someone was being professional when they actually gave that said review, okay? So, for example, in the case of Days Gone, this is a very unique case, I feel, and let me explain why. In the case of Days Gone, this is a game that if you only play it for the first 5 to 10 hours, you haven't even gotten into the real game. The intro segment of Days Gone, which is arguably about 10 hours long, you're learning gameplay mechanics that are repetitive and boring. You're learning the basic combat. You're learning about how to take out the zombie camps that are set around the map. And you're doing some basic interactions with people, fetch quests, etc. That's the first 10 hours, all right?
Well, then that's bad game design. If it takes 10 hours to get to the good stuff, the bit where the game gets really good, then why? Why is that period 10 hours long? Why isn't the game better paced? And it's fair to criticise the game for that. It's fair to have that opinion and write that in your review. It's fair to say it might be good after 10 hours, but fucking 10 hours is a long entry fee. It's a chunk. You can complete Portal in less time than that. You can complete Far Cry Blood Dragon in less time than that. 10 hours is a significant chunk out of people's lives, especially if the game is 30 hours long, 40 hours long. It's a third to a quarter of the entire game, and maybe the rest of the game is different, but that 10 hours, if it's bad, it's fine to go, I didn't want to play the rest of the game. It might be good, but it's not worth the cost of the 10 hours. And when I could be playing something else that I am enjoying that gets me into the action quicker. It's fine to criticise that. It's fine to say this is bad game design.
After you get past that segment and you leave the early areas of the game and you go to the new settlements, you're going to open up branching story arcs. You're going to open up meaningful side content, character development that wasn't present in the first 10 hours, and tons of new gameplay elements that also was not present in the intro segment.
See, yeah, it's... Why? If these things are so cool, why aren't they in the first 10 hours? To really hook the player and bring them in, you know? If it's an issue of pacing, then that's an aspect of the game design that you can criticise. If a game takes 10 hours to get good, I'm allowed to go. I don't want to spend that 10 hours to get to the good stuff. Because that good stuff might not be good enough to justify the 10 hours that I spent getting there. And in that 10 hours, I could be doing other things. It's a fair criticism.
So if you play past the first 10 hours, the game actually completely changes. And my opinion on the game changed too. When I was first playing it, my first 2-3 streams, I was like, man, I don't even know if I'm going to finish this. This is boring. And then once I got to that segment, I was like, whoa, I was hooked. I was riveted. I was like, wow, I definitely want to beat this game. The story picked up in a big way. Now you're fighting giant mobs of zombies and using these cool traps and things to defeat them. Okay? And so, to me, I can definitely see, as someone who did not like the first 10 hours, but then was blown away by the rest of the game, why someone who is a reviewer and only played the intro to the game doesn't even know that the game is good. All right?
You've assumed that they didn't know the game was good. What about if they felt that it wasn't worth the 10-hour initial investment to get to the good stuff? They might have gotten to the good point and thought, it's still not worth it. It still doesn't justify the slog to get here. Just because they didn't like the game and you did, doesn't mean they did a bad job reviewing it. It might just mean that you have bad taste, Bill. You like fucking... Oh, God. You like Duke Nukem Forever, for fuck's sake. You like Ride to Hell Retribution. I'm not saying Days Gone's that bad. I'm just saying, maybe Phil does have bad taste in games.
Now, what's funny about this is there seems to be this inclusive community of game reviewers, developers, and journalists who all know each other. They're all buddy-buddy. And they all try to defend each other constantly. I've seen it.
Oh my god, it's like people working in the same industry get to know each other or something. You know, like when that industry's built around knowing each other. Getting games of each other and going to massive public events that you're all reporting on. Or attending releases for games that you're all also reporting on. I knew people that I didn't work with in the office that I in a previous job, but were still in the same industry as me. People in the same industry know each other, Phil.
On Twitter, I've seen game journalists actually post up a tweet that says something like, you got to realize that we're within time constraints and we can't always rush through a game and beat it in a certain amount of time, so we're just doing our best, man.
That fucking attitude he takes there. Yeah, that's a fair enough comment. Again, if you're like, oh, the game takes like 30 or 40 hours, but the last 20 or 30 of it is the good stuff, but the person reviewing it only has 20 hours to do it, their opinion of the game is going to be half shit, half good. And that's a fair enough thing for them to say. Yeah, because you literally just said you wanted them to. You literally just said you wanted them to say that they didn't complete the game, or that they only got so far into it. So it's fair enough for them to say, yeah, we couldn't because we didn't have the time. Just
Our best, man. Okay.
Yeah.
So let me get this straight. You work for IGN. You're given a game to review. You're expected to do a professional, dignified review of that game that thousands of people, maybe even arguably hundreds of thousands of people around the globe will read and judge whether or not they're going to purchase that game based on your review. Oh, well, I didn't have enough time, man, so I just kind of rushed through it and then I reviewed it. No. If that's the case, don't put out your review in a rush.
No, they have deadlines that they're not responsible for. People higher than the reviewer set the deadlines. You just... How do you not get the concept of a deadline? I just... Mr. Day One Views. Mr. Day One Views. Mr. I need to play this game on the first day, the moment it comes out. Doesn't understand the concept of having it ready for that date.
Because the truth is, if people took their time to play these games and actually did these respectful reviews and just justifiable reviews, they would actually post up everything that they're doing. Today's the first day I'm playing the game. I'm playing it for 5 to 6 hours. Here's my initial impressions. I will take this as a running log of things that I'm doing in the game, and by the time that I'm done with this game in a week, then I'll post up my review.
How do you know that people take notes? I took pissing notes. How do you know they're not doing that when they're playing in the game to review it? I'm sure I've read reviews where they're like, right, within the first couple of hours I felt like this, but then later on I felt like this, and by the end I felt like this. And that's the sort of thing you remember because you're noting it down as you go. Just because they don't publish it, just because they don't tweet it out. Why would they tweet it out? That's the point of a fucking review, to tell you this stuff. Why would they tweet it out before they've done the review? If they live tweet their review, for fuck's sake. What about if there's an NDA? What about if there's an NDA? Not that I agree with them, but they're common, you know?
The problem is these companies are so desperate for your day one attention, for the ad revenue they get on their websites, for
the fucking irony here.
Day one video reviews that they put out, that they need to rush through and put out completely half-finished reviews in order to make money. That is a terrible business model. Okay?
The fucking irony.
Back in the day, these companies used to get games ahead of time by 1 to 2 months. They would play the games, review them. The review would be out weeks before the game even came out because it was a print medium. There was no online websites. It was EGM, GamePro, Game Informer had to make a print medium, a magazine. Had to come out early so that people would have a game review and know if a game was good or not. Those people played the games.
So they'd have a deadline that they'd have to have their review done by.
In a rushed setting, all right? Admittedly, sometimes those reviews weren't the best, all right? But that's why we had that practice. That's why, okay? Today, we don't need that practice anymore. Today, no one needs to get a game early, whether it's a mainstream site like IGN, GameSpot, Game Informer, or...
If they don't have enough time to review it, why wouldn't you want them to get it early? If your criticism is they're not doing it in time, they're not spending enough time with it, how are they supposed to review it if they can't get it early? I don't get this. I really... How does this work in your head?
An independent game reviewer, someone who's just a content creator, no one needs to get a game early. Here's what really should be happening. The game releases, Everyone buys the fucking game. Not every.
What? 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 What's the point of a fucking review? What's the point of having a review system at all if everybody has to buy the game the day it comes out anyway? What about if it's a bad game? What about if you didn't have all those reviews telling you the Ride to Hell Retribution is shite? You bought it on day one. Imagine how you'd feel under that system. What? I need to know what else.
Everyone gets it for free because you're some special selected golden content creator or reviewer, and so you get treated buddy. And so, because I got the game free, now I'm probably going to review it positively because I want to have a relationship with that company moving forward. It's completely illegitimate. There's no way that you can have this trust system with journalists that because they're getting shit for free and they're having this ongoing positive relationship with a game publishing company that they're going to legitimately review things fairly. But there's no way that...
That's how it works in everything. Do you think, like, again, in Top Gear, do you think they had to pay for those cars? Do you think people who review movies have to, like... Actually, no, they probably do, don't they? No, you get invited to, like, previews and trailers and premieres. People who review, like the heavy metal reviews, the album reviews in the backs of, like, Metal Hammer and Terrorizer. Music reviews. Record companies will send out those albums. The reviewers aren't buying the albums themselves. I feel like with most reviews, the product is provided for you to review it. I mean, if you're professionally reviewing, if you're a professional reviewer, if you work at like a magazine or something, you know, you're like a tech reviewer for a website who regularly reviews gadgets, for example. Like the gadget companies are going to be sending you their cool new shit that they want you to plug. Games companies are the same. They send out review copies to people because they want people to review the games. You shouldn't have to buy them. I'm fucking 21 minutes in, and this has been an hour for part 2 of Ask the King. Jesus.
That can happen. When you have the possibility of having further benefit by reviewing things in one way, you will tend to review things that way, even if you don't know it or intend it, it's still going to happen, okay? Now, in the case...
Yeah, that's called bias. Everybody has bias. And don't necessarily, you know, not just because you get it for free doesn't mean you're automatically going to give it a good review. You can get something for free and then say, nah, it's actually shit. I mean, feel free to go look at a few Steam profiles, you know. I feel like he's sort of taken the crux of an element of a thing that you can criticize, like by which I mean the practice within the game industry of suppressing negative reviews and withholding future exclusives in exchange for good reviews. You know, the Kane and Lynch fiasco, that sort of thing. And he's just extrapolated it to a ridiculous extreme where now everybody has to buy the game on day one, which completely defeats the point of a review, because the review is there to inform your purchasing decision. And that's normally a thing that's done before the product is released to buy, because then you make the decision to buy it or not. Let's get on with this, for fuck's sake.
By the way, shout out to Babu, who did a super chat. Thank you, Babu. In the case of Days Gone, I don't know what the situation was, but the funny part was, it seemed like no one was kissing this game's butt. It was the opposite situation. Everyone was criticizing the game for the first 10 hours, and very few reviewers were actually talking about any of the stuff that happened after the first 10 hours.
Because it's a bad first 10 hours then. It's a dull, boring, badly paced opening to a game that's beyond like an hour or two into 10 hours. That seems like a thing that a lot of games journalists will mention if a lot of them are playing it and going, my god, this opening 10 hours, Jesus. You're gonna remember that sort of thing, you know? You remember games that are tedious with their intros. I tell you the amount of times I've played the amount of times I've played through the vault in Fallout 3. But you know, I'm fucking lost here. I'm struggling to follow the logic.
I know. I read some of these reviews and I was like, how did it's like they didn't even pay attention to the game after the first 10 hours. But I would go as far to say I would probably think most of them didn't play past 10 hours. They played the 10 hours, they thought that's representative of the whole game, and they put out a game review that wasn't actually representative of the real game because they didn't bother putting the time into it.
Or they felt that 10 hours was representative of the game, and that for a lot of people that's enough to put you off. Because again, 10 hours is a not insignificant chunk of time to invest to get to a good part of a game, let alone just to play a game anyway. To get to a good part of the game, to take 10 hours. Fuck. That's the sort of thing that makes you think twice about playing it. And it's the sort of thing that you're probably not alone in thinking or feeling like that. So a lot of journalists mentioning this is acceptable because it's a very legitimate criticism of the game. Yeah, it might be good after the first 10 hours. But if I don't want to sit through that first 10 hours, I don't give a fuck. I've actually not played Days Gone. I've still got it on PS4, but I'm not going to PS Plus, so, it's just bad.
Days Gone is actually a very long game. Remember my playthrough was like 40 hours or something like that?
Yeah, so again, right, if a quarter of your game time is bad, it's fair enough to say this quarter of the game may not justify... Sorry, the 3 quarters of the game that are good may not justify the one that's bad. Sitting through the one that's bad. Especially because you don't have a choice. It's not like the last 10 hours are bad. It's the first 10 hours. And that's the bit where you're still not entirely under the sway of sunk cost bias. You're still at a point where you think, right, I can pull out now and the cost to me is not going to be that great compared to the amount that I will have to sink into this going forward. So, yeah, that's a fair enough thing to me. If a lot of journalists are going, the opening 10 hours are bad, this is a bad game because the opening 10 hours are bad, then, yeah. That's fine. That's a fair enough conclusion to reach. Go on, get on with it, come on.
You've only played the intro segment, you've only played 25% of the game. You're receiving a paycheck to put out a review on only 25% of the game, but you're not being transparent in your review to say you've only played 25% of the game.
No, again, why do you assume they've only played the 25% of the game? They might have played 50, 75, or 100%, but that 25% is bad enough to colour the remaining 75%. It's bad enough that you feel like you're going to warn people, look, this bit sucks, and it's going to take a long time until it doesn't suck. So if you don't like that, If you don't want to invest that time, then fair enough, skip the game. Because most people, it's fair enough, and they're going to want to skip the game because 10 hours is a lot to ask, let alone 40. You know? Not everybody does 2 streams 6 days a week, Phil. Many of us, especially in the detractor community, have jobs and hobbies and friends and family that we see and other things that we do.
So some person who doesn't know that goes to IGN, goes to GameSpot, goes to Game Informer, goes to wherever. Oh, it's a 6 out of 10. I guess that's a skip for me, man.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That's fucking fair enough. 6 out of 10 to me says it's all right. You know, it's a specialist. Like 6 out of 10 for a game suggests like if you're into this sort of game, you probably enjoy it, but most people might not. Or there's some good ideas here, but there are major flaws that might detract from that. Or under this beats the heart of a few good ideas, but they're dragged down by things that don't work. 6 out of 10 to me says you might enjoy it, but there are limitations. And the opening quarter of the game being bad is fair enough to me. That's a fair enough reason to knock a couple of points off a game. The rest of the game might be 8 out of 10, but if the start's 4 out of 10, I'm going with 6.
And it's not fair. That's definitely not fair. It's not. It's ridiculous. Yes, I 100% agree with you, Kill Bill. Game journalists, game reviewers, if this is your job, you're getting paid for it. You need to be held by a professional criteria by which everyone is graded to...
Do you think we should hold streamers to that as well, Phil? Should we hold streamers to that sort of grade? Should we have criteria for streamers to make sure they put out a quality product and don't just spend most of their playtime sat in menus waiting for the chat to tell them what to do next?
Prove that you actually did the work. Because I don't believe it. I don't. When I see some of these game reviews and shit, I don't believe it. I find it very hard to believe that these people who don't seem to know about things that happen later on in the game don't talk about that shit in their review. I just don't get it. I think that these people are literally getting the game early by a week, rushing through as much as they can play, and then putting out a half-finished review. So that...
Right, so again, a week is... If you're rushing through it in a week, you're going to get through more than 10 hours. So you're going to get to the good bit. But you're going to remember the first 10 hours. Because it's going to colour your perceptions for the rest of the game going forward. And yeah, by the end of it, you might think, wow, that was alright. But for most of it, you're thinking, fucking hell, that 10 hours, Jesus. I'm glad I'm out of that. Fuck me, it's the sort of thing you bring up when you're talking to your mates about it. Have you played that? Yeah. What's it like? Oh, it's alright. Yeah, well, it opens up later, but it fucking drags at the start, mate. I'd skip it at that point. If my friends were like, yeah, the intro's first 10 hours. Oof. It's fine. It seems fine to me.
At least they have something to put out in time for release embargo, or wherever the embargo was lifted, they can put out the review, so they can get the day one views, the day one ad revenue, and then their job
irony.
is done. They don't care if the game sells or not. They don't realize that there are direct repercussions for them being irresponsible with what they're doing. Okay? Now, I'm not saying it's everyone. I don't want anyone to get the wrong impression. It's not every single...
Fucking direct repercussions. You're what? Like, a bad review putting people off buying a game? Fucking repercussions. Oh.
Reviewer, it's not every single major site, but I have definitely seen shit like this over the years that I'm like, how on earth can you say that this is a legit review? I just don't understand it. Okay? And...
It's a lot you don't understand.
It's disgusting in a way because... This industry of gaming is the biggest entertainment industry in the world. It's bigger than movies, it's bigger than television, it's bigger than music, it's bigger than all that combined. But it's not treated like that. It's actually treated like it's something brand new. A brand new medium out of nowhere.
It is. It is a brand new medium compared to like radio and film that have been around for over a century. It's relatively brand new.
Has appeared that now we don't have to be professional about it. Why not? If everything else has to be professional, why doesn't gaming have to be professional? Why do we have people who it's your job to put out a review and you do a half-assed review, but that's an opinion. Defend it. No.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
Mark Commode gives his opinion when he's reviewing stuff. When he's reviewing films, he is giving you his opinion of that film. Reviews are vehicles by which opinions on things are conveyed.
It's bullshit. I'm so tired of it. And I also hate this bandwagon mentality that it just seems collectively, all of a sudden, the media community, the gaming media, gaming journalist community decides what games are good and what games aren't with no justification. The Last of Us 2...
What? It seems weird to you that game journalists decide what games are good and what games are bad. The people that review games to tell you whether they're good or bad. That's literally their job. Oh, my head. Like my actual head. Oh my god. Oh, he's going to talk about The Last of Us 2 now. Fucking hell. Oh, why am I doing this? There's not even that much psychology in this.
Again, not going to go into a big rant about this. I have actual, factual reasons. I'm not opinions, but factual reasons why The Last of Us 2 is not a great game. Actual narrative faux pas that they used in the way the game panned out. I'm not saying the graphics or the gameplay, the accessibility. I'm saying the story itself is monstrously flawed. If a writing teacher...
So, the story is bad. But Phil, what about if you enjoy the graphics and the gameplay and the combat and the general world design? You can look past the story. But what about if you can't? What about if the story colours your appreciation of everything else? What about if the story being bad affects all the good? It's me, Dad.
Eventually.
Okay, right, let's get this over and done with. Still have a part 3 to go, for fuck's sake.
Or a professional high-level writer who writes for a living were to grade the story of Last of Us 2, they would give it a fucking D-. The game is poorly written. Incredibly poorly written. That's really the only major problem I have with the game, too. Like, I like the game overall, except the story is badly done.
So that aspect being bad can affect how you view the rest of the game. Your reaction to it. Like, the first 10 hours being bad can affect how you view the remaining 30.
Why do no game reviewers call that out? It's a fact. It's not an opinion. If you actually have someone who knows what the fuck they're talking about, watch that game or play that game, they will tell you that story is shit. They will say, no, you don't have the story start here, jump back here, then go here, then go here, then go here. It's disjointed. It's jarring. It's annoying to the player that you do that. You don't have characters completely act out of character from how they were in the previous installment. Then what was the investment of even playing the first game? You might as well only play Last of Us 2 and never played the first game, because if you did, you're going to get pissed off with how these characters behave in the sequel, because they're not the same characters. Anyone could factually point this out. Not one single mainstream game reviewer pointed that shit out. A lot of independent guys did. There were independent content creators who pointed the flaws out with the narrative of the game, but not the main guys. Why not? I want to know. I want to know why there was this collective agreement that The Last of Us 2 instantly was the best game ever made. What was this collusion? Because that's exactly what I feel it was. It was collusion among games journalists that they wanted this game that was ultra progressive, right? The game that pushed certain agendas to become the quintessential face of gaming. And that's bullshit. Because the game by its own merits is a great game.
For someone who doesn't leave a gated community, you should really stay out of social issues. I feel like that's a thing that should be, brought up every now and then. Whenever Phil does veer into this sort of territory. Homosexual marriage. But yeah. Move on. Let's move on.
Great game, but it's not the best game ever made. It has essential flaws in the narrative that should have been pointed out that were completely ignored. And I want to know why that is. If we had a grading system like Kill Bill is suggesting here, an actual grading system for how journalists have to put out their reviews, we would have an answer. But instead, it's ignore it. Ignore the flaws. The game's 10 out of 10. What are you talking about?
How would your grading system help? Oh, I think he's sort of vaguely fumbling towards the idea that if all the reviews look suspect, then you can look at like objective markers and try to identify why. But reviews are subjective because they're opinions. We could both play Streets of Rage 4. He could hate it, and I love it. We both playing the same game, but we both giving it different reviews. Because they're fucking subjective, because they're opinions. Also, Dad Bod Axel is the best Axel.
You can't do that. That's irresponsible. And that's the system we have. Well, it's just our opinion. Best game ever, 10 out of 10. Okay. Okay, whatever you say.
Fuck it.
Anyway,
we get on with it.
That's my take on the situation. You guys know always how I felt about games journalism. So, all right. We got about 30 minutes left until we take another break. I got a couple quick shout-outs to do here. Ansheng Forever tipped me $1.30. Says, I enjoy your Ask the King streams. Thank you, Ansheng Forever. I enjoy doing them. Thank you for the support. Snow Carl tipped me $1.30.
Why did it take you like 3 months? You enjoy doing them because you sit on your ass and talk and get paid. You don't even have to play a game at this point.
He says, why should the gaming industry act different towards any other industry in terms of product reviews, early access, movies, clothing, coffee brewers, cars, send out free samples to reviewers because the public want X to review before buying. So what you're saying is because everyone else does something wrong, that it's okay for games to do it wrong too.
It's not wrong. It's not wrong to have to give people reviewing the things that they're reviewing ahead of the release of these things. Because people are going to want to read the reviews of these things before they decide to buy them or not. It's not wrong. It's frustrating because he can't accept that he is wrong. He can't accept that his view is flawed. He cannot assess it from that perspective. He has made up his mind, and as far as he is concerned, he's right. His logic is flawless. He's perfect. He's the idea that giving reviewers things early so that they can review them is wrong is so fucking bizarre. I don't know how he's come to this conclusion. And I do know, and I do know why he's not assessing it to see if it might be wrong. It's fucking narcissist.
No. We should hold everyone to a standard. We should hold everyone to a respectable, professional, and moral standard. Okay?
Morals aren't objective. Morals are subjective. They change between people. You can't have a moral standard. Because it's different for everyone. Oh my god. I'm gonna die. I'm actually gonna die.
Way, I hate to say this, when you're talking about what you're talking about, all right, well, for example, let's say you see a celebrity on TV,
Yeah.
and a celebrity is pushing a brand of coffee, okay? It will actually say in the bottom of the screen and tiny ant-like text, it'll actually say, this is a paid promotion, this is not representative of the actual opinion of said celebrity.
Oh my
It
god,
says
you
right-
fucking moron. It tells you paid promotion because they have to tell you it's an ad. Things tell you that they're paid promotions because they have to make it clear that they're ads. Of course, somebody in an advert has been paid to say the thing they're saying. That's literally how advertising works. You have a business degree, for fuck's sake. I've been over-advertised in the Fire Festival video. This is fucking infuriating, this.
On that ad, that celebrity was paid to promote the product. That's not, oh, we gave the celebrity the coffee and they legitimately tested it and said it's the best coffee ever. That's why they're saying that in this commercial. No,
but the celebrities are aligning themselves with a brand that they feel is appropriate for them. So they obviously have some investment. It may be financial because Pepsi might have given David Beckham 15 million or fucking whatever. But he's aligning himself with that brand. So he's obviously okay with it. He obviously doesn't mind it. He's probably fine with it. I'm not sponsored. I just fucking well should be. That's how it works. There's a product you like, and if you think, hey, I can get a sponsorship, you contact them. They come to you and think, hey, we think our brand's great, and it would be a good fit for you. Check out our stuff. You check out their stuff, and you think, hey, actually, it's pretty cool, yeah, and yeah, I'll take the money as well, thanks. And then you start pimping it on your social media. You have to tell them it's an ad. You have to like say hashtag ad. You have to specify that you're advertising. This fucking YouTube lets you put up this, you know, whereabouts it is on the fucking screen. I don't know. It's the top right now, the top left. Sorry. It comes up, you know, sponsored content because of things like the Fire Festival and celebrities taking advantage of parasocial relationships to con people and to trick them by not telling them that this thing they're promoting is an ad. He thinks he's the only one that's noticed this. That's the shocking thing. That's the thing that gets to me. He thinks he's the only one. And again, this is the narcissism making him the center of his universe. But the idea that other people know how advertising works is like alien to him. You can't consider that other people might also have seen Mad Men. Or might have fallen prey to Billy McFarlane or something like that. You know, he thinks he's coming down from Mount Sinai with stone tablets.
no, is they were directly paid to say that. When you go to IGN, do you see that text at the bottom of the review?
You don't see that text on adverts on TV. The thing is, in like the context of TV, ad break TV, it's well accepted that this period here, these ads, are for advertising. So people get that. But then when you go into social media, it's not always immediately obvious. That's why people have to specify. It doesn't work like that in journalism, though. You have to specify if you were given review copies. You have to specify if something is sponsored content. If an article goes on your website talking about how fucking great this new gambling website is, you have to specify that you're being paid for that. But you're allowed to do a review without saying, we got a copy to review ahead of time. Normally they say that anyway, don't they? I'm sure. I mean, you can even you can even flag that on Steam. You can even put in your review that you got the review copy for free. So, again, I'm just... When you're reading a review, you're contextually aware that it's a review. And along with that contextual knowledge is the acceptance of certain standards, I guess, and certain practices that are involved in the production of this review. And one of those practices is that a copy has been given ahead of time from the people who make the game to the people who review the game, so that they can spend some time playing the game and review it before the release date, because these game manufacturers, these game developers and publishers, they want the reviews out on the same day the game's out, because then people can read the reviews and go buy the games. It's not some sort of like fucking vast conspiracy that's like some smoking gun that's going to blow the lid off the whole games review industry. It's pathetic that he hates reviewers this much.
The difference is we have an industry in the gaming and games industry, games journalism, where we have an entire group of people who are supposed to be respectable, and they're not.
Okay,
They're
no,
being...
right. The difference is that most places have assigned areas for ads. With TV, there's breaks in the show so that they can show adverts. With newspapers and magazines, there are pages that are devoted to adverts. With radio, there are gaps between songs where adverts are played. Between websites, there are adverts shown between YouTube videos. In fact, if YouTube's doing what it wants to, probably like 5 or 6 mid-rolls on an Etika stream, Phil. But they're contextually understood as adverts. People can work out when something's an advert and when it's not, because they can understand and process the wider context of what it is they're reading. That's why people have to specify on social media, because it's not always immediately obvious in that context. But in the context of going to the review section of a games journal website, just fucking, I can't. It's like trying to work with this logic. It's doing my fucking head in. You understand when something's an advert and when it's not, instinctively. We're pretty good at spotting when we're being sold something and when something's being reviewed, and protections exist here and there to compensate for the times when it's not immediately obvious. They're not always perfect, but it's better than like in the 50s and 60s when you could be like, hey, smoking is great, to give your children these cigarettes today. Right, come on, I can get through this. Still got another half hour. There's still part 3, and that's like 30 or 40 minutes. Fuck.
Dishonest. They're not doing due diligence in their reviews. They're not even revealing the methods they're using to play these games and review them. They're just pumping out a number score.
What methods? What methods are they using to play them? They put it in the PlayStation and use the control pad.
And it becomes this groupthink mentality to believe that's the game.
That's not groupthink, that's conformity. That's not groupthink. That's conformity.
And don't believe anything else. That's the number score, man. And games are selling or not selling based on this thing. And there's nothing there to say that it's a paid advertisement. If someone's putting out
there has to be now. There usually is now. There's usually a note, it's either an italicized line at the top or it's at the bottom. But normally they will say, this is a paid promotion. That's a common thing now. Bill has somehow not seen the words paid promotion on any article he's ever read on any games review website ever.
Stream of a game early. Okay, let's say, I don't know, PewDiePie gets a copy of Biomutant. I'm just completely making this up. He gets a copy of Biomutant a week early, and he's playing it on his stream, and he puts in the description of his stream, FYI, this is a free copy, it's a paid promotion. And he's kissing the game's butt in his stream. That's the fault of the viewer for not doing their due diligence to realize that was a paid promotion advertising.
Fucking, he's put the thing in the description. People have seen it. What? It's the fault of the viewer. For what? If he's put the thing, people see the description box. People click it to see the full thing. They'll see that he's put it there, and they'll be like, okay, this is an advert. What the fuck? See, I think he's done it. I think he's previously done it. I think he's previously read like a blatant advert and not seen this as a paid promotion on an article. And then he was shocked to discover it was an advert. I thought it was a massive fucking secret or conspiracy or some shit like that. Fuck. Wear your actual glasses more, Phil.
The game, and that's why he's being so positive about it. Okay? If you go to IGN or you go to Game Informer or you go to GameSpot and you read a game review, and the review says 6 out of 10, but it doesn't disclose that they never played past the first 10 hours of the 40-hour game, that's fucked up.
No, it's not. No, it's not. No. 10 hours is enough time to sort of like, if you're playing a game and the first hour is shit, you think, okay, it's the first hour, it might pick up. And then 3 hours in, you're like, it's still a bit shit. I'll give it a few more hours. I mean, this might be just like a long starting area. And then you get 6 or 7 hours in and you're like, this is still really shit. Oh my god, what? Like, I'm going to give this, like, I'm nearly done with this. If this doesn't pick up in the next hour or two, I'm fucking done with it. And it doesn't pick up in the next hour or two, then it's fine to go, you know what? The fucking 10 hours that I had with it were shit. And there was nothing to indicate that it was going to get better. If you think that it magically did, and it might have done. Like I said, I've not played Days Gone. If there's something that suddenly changes, it snaps, and it becomes magical all of a sudden. You don't reach that point, because this, again, that's the thing that comes out of nowhere. There's nothing building up to that or to suggest that that is going to happen. So it's a fair enough conclusion to draw after 10 hours of shit that the remaining hours will also be shit. It is not wrong to do that. 10 hours is a long time. A quarter of your game being shit is fine enough reason to think that your game is shit. Because that quarter of a game can be shit enough to not justify the remaining 3 quarters being okay.
Them lying to you, being dishonest to you. And that's the difference between what you're saying, Snow Carl, and what I'm saying. All right? It's a different situation. Yes, in other industries, absolutely, there is paid promotion. But these websites, these gaming journalist websites, should not be paid promotion. They're being interpreted as actual reviews when a lot of the times in a case like a game like Days Gone, some of them were not. Some of them were complete bullshit. That's the point.
But you see, right, okay. What's that got to do with paid promotion, though? Because presumably paid promotion would be, holy shit, the moment Days Gone starts, it's amazing. I need to get on with this. This is going to be a fucking nightmare to edit. Come on.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
So an anonymous $1.30 tipper says, first of all, didn't I just use game reviews to judge if I was going to skip Biomutant? Yes. Because the consensus was every single person playing the game had the same exact criticisms of the game. It wasn't...
But when it's the first 10 hours of Days Gone and every single person reviewing the game is like, the first 10 hours is shit, that's bad. But when they're all doing it with Biomutant, that's fine.
oh, one game site said this, one game site said that. The majority, and not only just the main ones, but even independent guys, had general criticisms of the game that were all common. And if that's the case, that's the difference that you know that it's probably resoundingly true overall. In the case of The Last of Us 2, there were a lot of people who were independent who said this story sucks, and they were all ignored and called bigots and brushed under the rug. In the case of Biomutant, everyone kind of agrees the game's boring as dirt after about 3 hours. That's the difference. Very different situation.
No, it's not.
Apples to apples comparison.
No, it's not.
Now, this
It's an
anonymous
apples to
tipper
apples.
also says the majority of people 10 hours is too much to slog through to get to a good part of a game. That's true. That's absolutely true. I'm not saying to.
And that's a fair enough criticism for a review. It's a highlight. And it's a fair enough reason for a reviewer to go, it's probably not going to pick up. Because 10 hours is a fucking long time to keep telling yourself that it might pick up.
Ignore that. Absolutely, a game reviewer who reviewed Days Gone 6 out of 10, if their review says, oh, this game is 6 out of 10 because the first 10 hours are terrible, and after that it gets really good, but you don't want to waste 10 hours of time, that's fine. My point.
Most of them would. Like I said, most of them are going to take that 10 hours and go, look, this is a chunk of time that it may not be worth investing if you don't feel like the return for the next 30 hours is going to be worth it. Fuck! Fuck! I think that clip of Lars Ulrich screaming at James Hetfield. Fuck!
Is they didn't say that. My point is I directly read reviews that said the whole game was like that and they were wrong. They lied because they didn't play it.
Did you... Why would they? If after 10 hours there is no indication that your game is going to get better, it's fine to tap out then. And it's fine to tell people in a review, this game still has content that may be good, but you know what? The fucking first 10 hours did not suggest that. I can't. I need to get back to psychology. Fucking come on.
There's a big difference. Again, it's not an apples to apples comparison.
It fucking
but
was.
nice try.
Fuck you.
Okay.
Fucking patronising twat. Nice try. Fuck off. That bit from Dragon Ball Z Bridge where Yajirobe is.
I am pissed and hungry. She is right to fear me.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, we'll move on to Twitter questions.
Jesus.
So let us progress, shall we? A lot of Twitter questions today. He says, why are you so emphatic about not doing a cooking show? But I wasn't making any money doing it at all. But I had enough of a following that people wanted to see me do it as much as I could possibly do it around my job. And I said, well, if that's the case, I need to kind of try to make money another way. Essentially, the purpose of that channel was to put out a variety of videos and diversify my content. So if I wanted to monetize my content, I could. It wasn't an actual real cooking show. It was meant to be a joke. The show was meant to be funny rather than instructional. I cooked things that any Joe Schmo could make. A grilled cheese sandwich. A bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich. The thing is, some people, I guess, didn't get it. They didn't get the joke. I actually realized that I had nothing else to do. Like, I didn't know how to cook anything. I didn't know how to cook anything elaborate. I didn't have any real recipes to share with you guys. There's one recipe I have, my homemade Italian sauce and homemade meatballs I can make. That's about it. That's the only thing I'm good at cooking. Outside of that, I'm terrible at cooking. So I didn't have anything to do for the series. In 2018, my wife moved in with me. She wasn't my wife at the time, all right? But she moved in with me, and when she moved in with me, there was an idea, okay? And by the way, this was long before the trolling that happened to her when she was on my streams a few times, and then she decided she never wanted to be on a stream ever again. This was before that, months before that, okay? Because later that year in 2018, my wife decided to show up in a few videos of mine. There were one or two like Q&A videos we did together where we both answered questions to a live audience. Later on that year, there was a Halloween marathon where she dressed up in a costume along with me. We were dressed up in costume, playing horror games, okay? During those few streams, and then culminating in that Halloween marathon, people were so nasty to my wife. Just her glancing at the comments that were going through the stream at the time, she got incredibly upset. It really hurt her deeply to see people say disgusting things about her and insulting things about her. Insult. And by the way, they're all sexist, of course. All sexist, disgusting things people were saying about her. Because the idiots who illegally were restreaming me. They were saying these nasty things on their stream, and then those viewers were carrying over to my real stream and regurgitating that toxic filth on my stream. It really hurt my wife. She basically told me, remember we went on break, and she told me, basically in tears, she never wanted to be on my stream ever again. She's got her own life, stresses going on behind the scenes. She doesn't need to have extra stresses from a bunch of immature shitheads on the internet. And she has absolutely no desire to ever come back. You know, every little insane conspiracy theory to basically try to spin it to be something that it's not, that they were toxic, disgusting people. They concretely hurt my wife with their action, and they're responsible for the fact that she'll never be on my streams ever. It's not them. It's gotta be something I did. It was absolutely fucking disgusting. It was some of the worst example of human behavior you'll ever see. The things they said and did to my wife on that stream. Okay? It happened.